Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to talk about replacing pool tiles that may have cracked or broken off. Oftentimes this happens in the winter time because water can get behind those tiles and then freezing can cause them to crack or to pop off. I'm going to go through everything step by step and try to help you make sure that you do it properly so that in the future you don't have to replace tiles every single year. All of the products that we used in replacing our pool tiles I have linked in the description below. If you have any questions about any part of the process, feel free to comment and I will make sure to respond to those there. With that, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I had two specific areas on my pool where tiles had popped off. The first was on this section, which was a little bit longer, and then I had a second section that was smaller and would be pretty quick to fix. So that brings us to step one of this process, which is to chip away all of the previous thin set that was behind the tiles before. You want to make sure that you have a really smooth and clean surface because then it makes it much easier to place the tiles and make sure they're all in alignment. The tools that I'm using here is just a hammer and a chisel. I have those products linked in the description below. The thin set seems to chip off quite easily in some places, but there's definitely some sections you'll need to work on to make sure that they're smooth. Some people try to skip this step and just lay the tiles on top of the old lumpy thin set. This is a bad idea because you're going to have bulging tiles and pockets of air, and it's just going to create bigger problems in the future. That brings us to step two, which is to vacuum out all of the remaining debris and dust. This is all just part of making sure you have a really clean and dust-free surface that is smooth so that you can feel confident that those tiles are going to stay there forever. The next step I have here is cleaning and preparing the tiles that popped off. In my case, the tiles that popped off did not break, and so I can reuse them, and so I just need to scrape off the old thin set and get them prepared. Now obviously, you don't have to do this if you have new tiles, but I'm just doing this because I wanted to save the tiles that I already had because they match my pool. You really just want to make sure you break off all of the old grout so it gives proper spacing between your tiles, as well as scrape off the thin set from the back of the tile. This can take some time, so be patient with the process, but if you have new tiles, again, you don't have to worry about doing this. The next step is to mix and prepare your thin set. You want to have the right consistency, so let's jump into it. I only like to mix as much thin set as I'm going to be using at a given time. I don't like to mix too much. You want to add a little bit of water to it and then mix and see what kind of consistency you get. You can see here it's far too runny. What you're shooting for is a paste-like consistency so that it's easy to lather onto the wall and it'll stay there, as well as stick on the back of the tiles without being worried that it's going to slide right off. Now we are finally to the part where we can begin placing our tiles on the wall using the thin set that we just mixed. I tend to only do about a 1 foot stretch at a time, just so I don't run the risk of the thin set drying too quickly against the wall. I also add thin set to the back of each tile. Keeping your tiles properly spaced is really important. I use these little spacers, and I have linked those in the description below as well. If you don't have the proper spacing between your tiles, it can make it look really unprofessional and just unfinished. Anytime I finish a section of tile, I like to go through and touch each tile, make sure that it's firmly in place and that I like the spacing. Because once everything has dried, it's already too late. You're going to want to let those tiles dry for a day or two just to make sure they're firmly in place. Something that's really important that I think most people forget is cleaning your bucket as well as your trowel afterwards. If you let that dry, then it's a real pain to get clean. And now you're on to your final step, which is grouting the tiles. I always go through and pull out my spacers and then make sure the tile's face is as clean as I would like it to be before I put on the grout. The goal with grouting is to make sure that you are pushing the grout deep in between each crack in the tile. You want the grout to really fill that space perfectly so that water can't get back behind there again, because that's what caused the issue in the first place. For this reason, you're going to want to have a tile grouting float. It has a foam end and it allows you to press that grout really deeply into the cracks. Once I am finished grouting, I will take a damp sponge and wipe off the face of the tiles. Be careful doing this because you do not want to remove any grout that you've now pressed between the tiles. And just so you can see it, here's what it looks like all finished. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope that this was helpful. We'll see you next time.